So I would love to say Kaya Wanju, hello and welcome everyone, and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where we're recording the webinar today. For me, that's the Whadjuk Noongar people. I also would love to acknowledge the Wilman Noongar people where I grew up and honour elders past and present in the spirit of reconciliation. So I'm Belinda Smith. I'm here from Meerilinga Parenting Service. I work as a parenting facilitator and I love supporting parents. I think they have the most important job in the world and they're amazing. Henrietta, do you want to go next? Introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Henrietta, and I am working or volunteering for Multilingual Australia. And we are working with families to maintain their languages at home and support them with strategies as well as support, because sometimes things can go wrong. We have a huge Facebook group where families can join in and ask all sorts of questions. So this is an ongoing collaboration between the three of us for the last 3 years. So I just want to make a shout out to my colleagues and thank you so much for having us again.
Beautiful. Thanks, Henrietta. It's good to have you here. Jen, do you want to go next?
Hi everyone, great to be here again. As Henrietta said, we've been doing these webinars annually during Harmony Week or as close to it as we can for the last couple of years. So it's great to be here again. So my name is Jen and I'm joining you today from the State Library of Western Australia, located in Perth City Centre. And in the State Library, I'm on the Better Beginnings team as part of the Better Beginnings program. And we heavily focused on early childhood, early literacy and the 0 to 5 age range. So I'm really looking forward to sharing a bit of information about that with you today.
Thanks, Jen. So it's really lovely to welcome the parents who are and professionals who are here today in person and also those who are listening into the recording. And we just want to start by saying thank you so much for everything it took for you to be here or to, arrange life to listen in. We know how busy you all are, so we really appreciate that time. And even more importantly than this short little snippet of time is all the love and care, the thinking, the patience, the nighttime parenting, the sick parenting, the list goes on and on. Thank you so much for everything that you do as a parent. It's really important work. So as Jen mentioned, this is all to celebrate Harmony Week. And we have such a powerful role to play in the lives of our children. You really are their sun, moon and stars. And we know that the first 5 years are incredibly important for brain growth. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Henrietta will talk about second languages, multilingualism, and has lots of amazing information there. And Jen will talk about the Better Beginnings message and also that it's a special year for Better Beginnings this year. So hear a bit more about that. So thank you for being here. And at the end, there's time for Q&A if you would like to stick around for that. So the child's developing brain. This information, there's a lot of text on the screen, so I'm not going to read directly from that, but that will get sent out to those listening in. And this information's from the Australian Childhood Foundation. They have a really great workshop called Bringing Up Great Kids that I highly recommend to any parents listening in. But essentially, if there's one thing you take away about brain development in those first 5 years, it's that you and your relationship and your connection with your child is actually how your child's intelligence is built. So every time you connect with them warmly, with love and care, you are literally building that brain architecture that allows them to grow and develop. And it all starts with some fairly basic key functions, important functions like breathing, with the base of the brain, and it's growing and developing right through until the mid to late 20s. So when we understand all of that, it really helps us as parents. Things can get a little bit frustrating at times. So knowing why are they doing that or why don't they listen, understanding the developmental norms can be really helpful. And that's where workshops such as the ones we offer at Meerilinga Parenting Service can help. They really need our help in those early years because the executive functions like thinking, short-term memory, impulse control are very limited in those first few years, and they're really governed by their emotional brain until they're getting a bit older. So here's a little image to illustrate all of that the brain stem is the first to develop, and it's fully developed at birth, ready to go. And then from there, the brain's building all of these connections, and the movement center then happens. And that's where we see that amazing explosion of development with their motor control over the first couple of years. And then, of course, they're still not got a lot of control over the emotional center, as we know from 2 and 3-year-olds. Up to 4 years old, they're really governed by wild emotions generally, because that limbic system is still developing. The last to develop is the thinking part, the prefrontal cortex here. And that, as I said, is still building those connections to make it function optimally right through until mid to late 20s. So parenting is a long-term job. So you're the sculptor of that beautiful brain. And we know that young brains are really sensitive to their experiences, and that we therefore have an incredibly powerful role to play. A lot of parents use that as a big stick to beat themselves up with at that point, like, oh no. What I also want to emphasize is that it's never too late to build those connections and to support your child's feeling of safety and feeling of resilience and support in the world. So we know that what's primary to healthy brain development is those supportive, caring, and consistent relationships in their lives. Some really simple functional ways to make this work: play. All mammals do it, and there's a good reason for that. It helps those brains develop beautifully. So play as much as you possibly can in the midst of your exhaustion. Touching, holding, comforting, reading, singing, talking, all of those things provide the stimulation that their growing brains need. And talking and reading to your child is one of the best ways to connect with them, to give them those beautiful vicarious experiences of the world, and to give them lots of practice in the pre-literacy skills they'll need to feel successful at school and to actually engage with the world in ways that make them feel really great. And generally, lots of repetition is how those brains work well in the early years. So I hope you take away from this little portion the fact that children need lots of connection to thrive, and that we parents can't do that alone. We need a lot of support, and organisations like Meerilinga are here to support you. We offer workshops, one-to-one sessions. If you're listening in from elsewhere than the Southwest Metro region, which is our funded parenting service area, there are funded services all over the state. So feel free to reach out, and I can certainly connect you with your local. Okay, thank you. So I will now pass over to Henrietta. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jó napot kívánok mindenkinek. That's my mother tongue Hungarian. So I have been presenting about how to maintain languages at home, not just for multilingual, bilingual families, but anybody who wants to have another language at home, because we know how good it is for the child to have another language. It's really good for their little brains, as well as there's so many other benefits. So can I please have the next slide? Yep, so it is just a little bit of guidance on practical strategies. We do have some workshops coming up where people will able to connect with your libraries, where we discuss this more in details, but I just wanted to give a little bit of a glimpse. Because yes, language maintenance should be fun, but at the same time, sometimes it's just roll into something that feels like a little bit of chore for everyone, and then there's that guilting part of ourselves, and then unfortunately things can fall apart. But today actually I had a conversation with one of my 3rd generation Polish staff who went on a Harmony Week event and first time saw the Polish kukułeczka dance group dancing, and she goes, she wanted to reconnect, and I said, this is what that particular group does really, really well. Our role is not necessarily to force. Our role is to be strong about it, knowing our conviction in regards to our language and culture, but things can go wrong. And because of that, our also secondary role is just to make sure that door is open when they're ready. Okay, so it is one of those roles that I think is not emphasized enough. Can I have the next slide, please? So, because unfortunately, whilst we have really good education system in Australia, they are not really kind to languages. It's changing, and we have more and more positive experiences, including myself. The teacher that my son has, who is now in preschool, actually very supportive of their languages and encouraging them to say hi and bye on their language. But that's not every school, and definitely not the experiences that a lot of the families that we have talked to experienced. And this is why children can develop and families can develop language heritage anxiety. And that's a real thing that unfortunately not much support available. There's currently only one psychologist in the whole country that actually can support families with that. And on top of all of that, if you have like us, we had a very severe language and speech delay that impacted all the other three languages. The only support I could have had was in English. So we had to make some difficult decisions. But again, my role is to make sure that door is open for opportunities for him to start learning when he's ready and able to. So when you see this in your child that they're hesitating to speak that language, and again, start early, start with the books. A lot of the libraries have now very diverse books, and you can actually request them as well. And I cannot sell this enough. Your phone, if you are, I have all the library apps on there, and you have it for your own language and different language. I have Peppa Pig in Spanish. I wish they would have it in English, but it's so cool that now it's in your hand for free from your library. So again, we are so lucky. Also may prefer English, especially when it comes to the siblings. You may see that they actually talking to each other. That sometimes can happen as well because one sibling feels like they're a little bit left behind because of their age difference. So one child may have extra 2 years on speaking that language, the other one is not. And of course, embarrassment, which is more for all the children, but still it can happen in younger child as well, and they can actually quite disengaged. Next slide, please. So why is this happening? Well, most of the time there is no strategies that was given to families, and the earlier you start, the better. Okay, it doesn't mean like me as well. I'm just starting to reintroduce Hungarian to my son's life when I felt like, yes, he managed to start mainstream school, so didn't need it special school for his language delay. He able to start. He settled down. He's good. So what's next? Well, I need to, whatever is next for my family may not work for yours, but there's two things that all of us needs to get right if you want to introduce a language to your child. Exposure, motivation. Exposure means how often that language is used. And this is where some strategies can help. Like we all be using this language when we go for shopping or when we are doing cooking or when we do something or at lunchtime, at dinner time, and that exposure. That's why it's important to go to those community events, to connect with a community school, to start the bilingual story time. All of those things are really important because exposure, exposure, exposure. The second thing is the one that it's harder to manipulate and it's really need to be on top, which is motivation. The motivation for your child to learn that language in the first 5 years is going to be you. There's no buts and ifs and others. After that, when they start developing their little personalities, we need to explore how we can maintain that motivation. So one of the favorite example is one of the moms who told me that their son really, 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 really wanted to read comic books. And she said, no, not in English, but in our language, you can. That child learned to read on that language so they can read Spider-Man. Like the motivation, whoop, ticked off, yeah? And again, it can change. It could be Minecraft or it can be so many other things. Peppa is also available and I'm just using it because my son has a crazy obsession with it at the moment. Bluey as well. Mind you, I pre-warn you, my apologies. We not necessarily have that access, which I am forever blaming ABC for. But Bluey is available in so many languages. So if you have an opportunity, please try. So there's so many things that we can actually say, yes, you can do it in our language. Yes, you can do that in reading that. Okay. So need to get the exposure and motivation right. And this is where comes in that as a parents, we know our children. We know when we will have time and we will know what their little personalities is craving and utilizing language as a bridge to connect them with that. Next slide, please. And it's really important that language confidence, strong family, because language is actually also promoting a lot of positive aspects of family life, including strong family connections to traditions. As I said, some children, especially teenagers, that's when we have the lowest point of that. But if I can give a little bit of a relief to any of the parents listening today, I have never met a second or third generation Australian who turned around and said, I am so great that my parents never bothered, and that I'm so glad because I don't have to worry about this. They will seek reconnection. So our role is to be the guiding light in that journey. It doesn't matter when that is happening. Of course, if they're children and we implant this need and want and pride of our languages and culture, that's easier to do. But still, this can be a connection later on when they come back to the flock. Okay. Also, positive identity. We know that children who have well-established culture and religious links, they are much more prouder, and especially as growing up, that gives them an additional self-confidence. And it's these natural speaking are also really good for other skill sets, such as problem solving, such as communication. Multilingual people are better at communicating because we're able to pick up subtle clues, and better at problem solving because we are processing information in two different language systems. You know, it's not saying that monolinguals and monoculturals are not, it's just saying more likely. And again, language is a skill. There is a very aggressive green bird that can teach you any language. So just download it on your phone and you can give a try. Okay, next one, please. So practical ways. Again, for children, it's going to be about fun. As soon as it's a chore, we know what's happening. Okay, we know what will happen to whatever is a chore. It's going to be the least thing. We need rewards. Again, motivation, exposure, motivation, exposure. Learning through play is one of the biggest things. So, and really, really great, Kmart, Saving Grace. There's so many card games or games that you can actually look at that you can buy cheap and actually utilize. Snakes and ladders. I had in my home three kids, a Spanish, a Hungarian, and a Polish, do not speak each other's language. They were playing each other amongst each other, because that's a really great game. You don't need English or don't need to assign it to a language. You can, but also my son is really good counting in Hungarian because we're playing board games in Hungarian. So, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he can actually count to 20. Creative activities, very, very important to link with that what they want to be look at. And creative activities also can actually brought back my childhood art and craft book, and my son is just extremely interested in all the things are in it. So that was really cool. As well as music and rhymes. I had one lady who told me the only reason she connected with her Spanish language from South America is because when they moved to America, then to Australia, was through music. So that was her bridge. And when she got married and had kids, she wanted to restart that, and she learned Spanish again and reconnected with that heritage. But she said it was music, the Latin American music, that kept her language alive in her. So do not underestimate. And especially with the dancing. I know that Kukuwechka, and I know bringing them up, but they are really doing a really, really great job of getting younger kids. So up to from 3 years old, they can actually have. And that music and dancing is actually really good for people to keep in connection with their cultural language. So you can actually choose. You don't have to be from that culture. You can actually choose a dance group, a folk dance group, and actually engage, or at home, just go for the boogie. You know, kids love that. So, engage and be creative about it and have fun. If it's not fun, it's not good for you or for your child either. So make it fun. Okay. Next one, please. Yeah, so one of the things that we're doing right now, we're actually developing a bilingual story guidelines. And again, huge shout out to Better Beginnings because they got us the grant. So by the end of the year, we're going to have a guideline for families to start. So while we were doing these workshops with the families through libraries, shout out my favorite people, the libraries, we actually noticed that they were randomly forming German, Urdu, Hindi speaking, because finally we brought them together and they say, hey, you speak, let's meet here on Thursdays. But again, it's about the motivation, about the skills, about the library. So we're looking at a guideline where anyone with any language, for any of the languages, can start a small group at a library or a designated area. Again, we're working with the libraries to see what spacing arrangement could be done. So we're still looking at what is possible, and get them to start these groups. Now, we know these groups are not permanent because the reality is kids grow up and then the mom moves on, who's usually run that. But again, we're looking at that sustainability as well. Then what's next? Who can be taken over? When they should start the succession planning, and so forth, and what the place the libraries or the communities themselves can play. So it's proven results that those works. My son went to the Hungarian one as well until unfortunately it collapsed because of numbers. Yeah. So I would love that. I don't know what would have been. I'm still wondering until today because we had so much fun with singing, and we were very lucky that the person running those rhyme time, story time, singing times were actually a teacher with musical background. Next. Yeah, so again, make it interactive, that kids really, really love. Puppets, you can borrow them from libraries as well. So make it fun. Also, crafting language together. You can actually name one of the moms what they were doing. So they used the words for the tools when they were cooking. So what is flour? So they had, okay, get the whatever flour is in their language, get the whatever tool, or, counting the minutes, so they utilize that of making sure that they're using that. Like what I do with board games, we have a board game obsession in this household. So I start early, and you can't see it behind me, but that shelf is actually full with board games. So, need to implant them early. And so we will start at it. And I started realizing that, hey, I'm having fun. I'm teaching my son my language. So win-win. And also cultural cooking sessions. Now, I would like to highlight two books on that picture. One of them is The Parent's Guide to Raise Multi-Literate Children. Now, very important, and I think Jennifer and I just had that discussion, that the first 5 years of children's life will be very determined in regards to how they're going in life in general. If they don't have the right early childhood education, that they have a less, like they percentage of having like a successful career or so forth can actually drop quite significantly. So this is why it's important on that language, because both of them can actually support that in the children. And the author of that particular book, who is Yoshito, and it's on our website and in our newsletter as well, so please sign up. Yoshito wrote The Parent's Guide to Raising Multiliterate Children. He is believing that without literacy, the language will not stick as much. So that's why it's important to introduce wording. And this is why Kmart can really help you, because they have a lot of boards and stuff that you can actually write and show. And especially if your language is from non-Latin based alphabet or characters. Other one is in, sometimes you can get it, but definitely you can order it from Amazon. So we gave away that at our last seniors week, when we connected seniors with their grandchildren to teach and share their language. And that Celebrate With Me, that has a lot of opportunities to celebrate different cultures. So you can actually do that as general if you're interested, but also get some ideas of what you can do for your own if yours is not mentioned. It's very obvious of who is in there. Hungarians is definitely not one of them. We are just too small of a community, but a lot of them are. And I got some ideas of what we can do with my little one. Next one, please. So very quick clips, praise the effort, even if it's small one. As I said, my biggest issues with the first generation of migrants, and that's include myself, is when we are actually putting down a second and third generation, because they have an accent when they speak our language, or they don't speak enough. And I really want to put a stop to that. Every word means our language and culture will survive in the next generation. Praise it all, please, because trust me, it is really, really hard. It's not an easy job to maintain that language. Unfortunately, we still have a lot of barriers when it comes to language maintenance and how it's look like. And our teenagers are biggest risk of losing it. So any praise of any support, it just makes a lot. Follow the interest. So again, exposure, motivation, exposure, motivation. We need to get that one right to make sure that it's there and build a community. You can't do it alone. Okay, you need to have your support systems. So resources and next step. Bilingual beginnings projects are happening now. So visit our website, please, multilingualaustralia.org.au, or email me directly, admin@multilingualaustralia. Practical strategies also on our website. You can download our calendar to celebrate languages, and we have a lot of good resources there for parents. And we will let you know, follow us so we can let you know about the workshops that we are having. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, so it's my turn. So thanks to Belinda for sharing with us all about that really core information about the brain architecture and brain development and the importance of the 0 to 5. That's going to really flow in nicely to what I'm going to share today, and also to Henrietta for sharing all those valuable hints and tips about mother language and languages in general. For those of you who don't know, I actually speak fluent Japanese, French, and Italian. So I'm a big language lover. So I get really excited just having someone like Henrietta on the other side of the screen, or, it really lights up my world. So a lot of what Henrietta was talking about, I really connected with, and I remembered my own experiences of learning Japanese, but also it reminded me my heritage is in fact Italian, and I see my children, they're really proud of their Italian heritage. And so whenever they show an interest in that area, I always try and support that and share a few words. And we're actually planning a family holiday to Japan, so that I'm hoping to inspire them more with learning Japanese as well. So that's just a little bit of my own background. So today I'm going to share with you and elaborate for those of you, hopefully, has everyone heard of Better Beginnings? If you have the chat open, feel free to pop in a yes or a no. So the question being, have you heard of Better Beginnings? And the second question is, if you have children, have you ever received one of our early literacy reading packs? So at present, we have a yellow pack for babies, families with babies, an orange pack, which is our toddler pack for families with a 2 or a 3-year-old. And we also have a green pack for kindergarten children for turning 5. Well, I'm really happy to see the yeses coming in, but don't be afraid to give me a no. In some recent market research that we did find out that there's still families out there not receiving our packs. So we're going to keep working on that, and that's one of the reasons I'm here today, to continue to expand on that awareness about Better Beginnings, what we are and what we do. So one of our key messages is that it's the parent or caregiver, not the library, who has the most influence on a child's early literacy development. So a parent or a caregiver might come along to a rhyme time or a story time session, or engage in an activity like the ones Henrietta's spoken about, or head along to one of the Meerilinga facilities. But that child is with the parent or caregiver for the majority of their time. So part of our role with Better Beginnings is to actually educate the parents and caregivers. So yes, we run rhyme time and story time sessions in collaboration with local public libraries and organisations, but we really want to share our messaging. And with those bags that some of you said you've handed out or received, wonderful, we are really also trying to talk to the parents and the caregivers, because we know that the parent is the child or caregiver, child's first and most important teacher. So next slide, thanks. Oh, that's amazing. I'm just reading Kirsten's comments. That's really cool. So you may or may not know also that we're actually celebrating 20 years of supporting families in 2025. If you have a moment and you haven't already, please do head along at some point to our YouTube channel. You can just jump on YouTube and look up Better Beginnings, and it should be the first video. We've got a little celebratory video there. Again, lots of other really helpful and important, helpful informationary videos, so please do take a look. And again, if you're joining us as a professional organisation, you are welcome to share those videos if it's helpful for the communities that you're engaging with. So, Better Beginnings was initially started as a pilot project and then it was rolled out statewide in 2005. We're really excited to have delivered over 1 million baby packs, and we service families all over Western Australia. So, we are an early literacy program across the state of Western Australia. That's a bit tricky because Western Australia is a really, really huge area. And so the way that we do that is in collaboration with local governments, local public libraries, schools, and other organisations as well. So, as I mentioned before, just that core message from Better Beginnings is that the parent and the caregivers are a child's first and most important teacher. So, learning to read begins at birth. And this touches on what Belinda mentioned about the reading, the talking, the singing, and doing all those things with children from birth. As it says on the slide, we're not suggesting that you are reading and writing with your children when they're born or 1 year old. What we're saying, and what early literacy is what children know about reading and writing before they actually learn to read and write. So it's the building blocks that really develop their awareness and skills so that when they do start to read and write, that they've got all the tools they need to be successful when they go to school. And again, you know, in support of what Henrietta is talking about, we really encourage families to do that in both English and their mother language. We really say that, you know, don't stop talking your mother language if that's the language you speak at home. Children, we encourage families to continue to speak that language with their child. I even used to natter off in Japanese, although it's not my mother language. I used to just natter in Japanese in the car with my children as a way of exposing them to positive language experiences and having a positive attitude towards languages and language learning. But in terms of the mother language, and Henrietta, feel free to chip in the chat, it is really important to support children in their first language. They're going to learn English when they go to school. So if you're a parent joining us or watching back on the recording, you don't need to worry about teaching them English. They're going to get that in school. But by all means, if you feel comfortable and want to, please do continue speaking your mother language at home with your child, and exploring all the other amazing avenues that Henrietta talked about. They sound really fun. Reminded me of so many memories of making sushi at school and ordering in sushi and going to Japanese restaurants and all kinds of things like that. So early literacy is really easy to do whether you're at home or on the move. So there are 5 pre-literacy skills that we're really wanting to support children. I'm just going to mention them here. Again, this is a really short little video session with us, but we elaborate on them in more detail on our YouTube channel. So some of those pre-literacy skills we're looking to develop with children, and we do that through the 5 practices of the read, talk, sing, write, and play, is vocabulary, knowing different words and what the meaning of those words is. So, for example, when you are reading a book and when you read lots of different books, all kinds of different books, you're exposing children and babies to words that they might not be hearing in everyday speech. Picture books are one of the best ways that you can grow your child's vocabulary. Singing as well. When you sing nursery rhymes, again, whether in English or another language, you are also exposing children to rare vocabulary. A lot of nursery rhymes, for example, wind the bobbin up, if you know that one. Bobbin, it's not a word I would ever normally say to my children or babies. Ceiling, point to the ceiling. Again, ceiling, not generally a word they're going to hear, but when they go on and learn to read and write, these are words they might come across and they need to know what they mean. Great, thanks, Belinda. Yeah, it's one of my favorites as well. So background knowledge, again, knowing all different things about the world, again, is a really important pre-literacy skill for children to develop. Print awareness, knowing what print is, that it's all around. So things like pointing out signs, pointing that words on a menu have meaning. Again, these are all things that families can do in that 0 to 5 age range before a child is actually going to school and learning to read and write. You also have phonological awareness, which is hearing, making sounds and rhymes, and knowing that sounds make up words. And lastly, letter knowledge. So that, again, you've got capital letters, lowercase letters, that letters come from shapes, letters form words, words have meaning. Again, there's so much to unpack there. I do encourage you to have a look at our YouTube videos, which go over it in a bit more detail. But they are the pre-literacy skills we love to, we're always trying to expose children to and develop. And again, if that's all a little bit gobbledygook and gone over your head or you've forgotten it, that's okay. You can keep it really simple for families. We're just encouraging them to read, talk, sing, write, and play with their child every day. So when read is pretty self-explanatory and talk, sing, when we're saying write, we're not actually saying you get there with a 1-year-old again and you're teaching them the alphabet. What we mean is even from birth, as they're able to, do some scrunching, giving them different toys, rattles to grip, we're building their finger strength. And then as they get older, you might be providing them with different writing materials. You might give them some chalk, you might give them some crayons, you might develop to the more the thinner crayons. You start with the chunky ones, you go on to the thin ones, and again it's a progression into then pencils, coloring, pens, and so on and so forth. So hopefully that's making a bit of sense to the people joining us on the call live and back on the video. Again, if you do have any questions about any of that, feel free to jot them in the chat. So once again, coming back to that idea of reading, especially to your child, a child that's read to for 30 minutes every day has been fed about 900 hours of literacy nutrition. And in that literacy nutrition, we're talking about all those pre-literacy skills like background knowledge, vocabulary. And if you think back to what Belinda said about the architecture of the brain and that you are the sculptor, we have this opportunity with children when they're born to feed them all, this amazing nutrition of languages and information and words. So I find that quote really powerful. So another thing that here at Better Beginnings we love to do is really remind families or let families know that your local public library is free to join, and it's a really incredible resource for families and also organisations to connect with and tap into. So please visit, join, explore your local public library, borrow often, and again, it's not just for the children, it's for the adults as well. I personally use the BorrowBox app a lot. It's ebook and audiobook app, and I always have books on the go, and that's really, really wonderful for adults as well as children. Again, you can stream it through your Bluetooth on your car. Again, they have audiobooks that you can listen to with children on road trips. So yeah, that's one of many, many amazing resources that you can tap into from your local public library. As I mentioned in the chat, if you missed it, we also have purchased the Lope for Kids app or resource, and that has books in all, like, so many different languages, and they're always adding new titles. Again, so if you are a family and you speak a language other than English, or if you're an organisation, please do feel free to share that with the community that you're connecting with. And that's something that the State Library purchases on behalf of all West Australians that they can then access for free. So some really good information being shared on the chat. Thanks, Henrietta and Belinda. Public libraries also have a lot of events throughout the year. So rhyme time, story time, most public libraries are running these programs. Again, they're almost always rhyme time, story time, free to join. They also do a lot of school holiday activities. So again, please do, wherever you're located, wherever you live, please do check out your local public library for yourself and for your family. A really, really amazing resource that you can tap into. And those online resources I mentioned, there's just a little link there. But if you go to the Better Beginnings website and head to the e-resources section, you can find out some more about all the different e-resources that we organise on behalf of the people of Western Australia that you can access for free. So again, just to break it down really simply, our message from Better Beginnings to parents and caregivers is to read, talk, sing, write, and play with your child every day. As Belinda said, just have fun. And Henrietta said it as well with the languages. Just have fun. Just be present with children and just have fun. So yeah, that brings me to the end of what I was here to share with everyone. I think we've done really well for time. It's 1:40, so we have some time for questions. So you're welcome to put a question in the chat or to unmute yourself. Belinda, did you perhaps want to take over and manage that and even stop the recording, I'm thinking? So thanks
Absolutely.
again, everyone. I'm going to stop talking now.
Thanks so much, everyone who's listening in, and we'd love to get in touch with you. You can find our contact details on the slide that you'll receive. Thank you.